Hi, how you doing today? This is Jared Held with Paws Saving Paws Rescue Hero, Dog Rescue Heroes, Tales of Triumph and Compassion. Today we're so lucky we have Sharon Johnson with us today from Marley's Mutts. Is that in California?
It is. It's located, the main office is in Tehachapi.
Okay. Yeah, and Sharon actually, when I first started with everything, gave me some fantastic tips and things I needed to know about shelter life, planning rooms, and really the whole entire piece to move forward, as well as the advice on how to do certain things in regards to building the shelter and more of that nature. So, Sharon, you've been a fantastic help for me to really get everything started. Talk to me a little
Glad to
bit
be of
about
help.
Marley's Mutts and what you guys do there.
Okay. Well, Marley's Mutts was founded in 2009 by Zach Scow, and he was in an end-stage liver failure when he decided to do a rescue. It was
Okay.
his dogs that actually saved his life. And he grew the business and he worked very, very hard. We became a nonprofit in 2010, and
Okay.
it's just been going very strong ever since then. We're located in Tehachapi, California, which is about 2.5 hours north of Los Angeles. It's in the
Okay.
mountains. It's at about 4,200 feet, so it gets pretty cold up there and it
Yeah.
snows. But we're so fortunate that we have a 20-acre rescue ranch, and we've built out about 5 to 7 acres of it so far.
Oh, wow. And how many animals do you guys do? You do dogs and cats? How many animals do you have there that you're helping at the moment?
We're strictly with dogs. Cats is another specialty in and of
Yes, I
itself.
agree.
And there could be up to 60 dogs. I think currently there's about 40, though.
Okay. Wow, that's fantastic. And based on what we spoke about in the past, if I understand correctly, they have a lot of room to roam because of the
Yes,
land
they
that's out
do.
there.
They do. We have multiple yards built out. One huge yard for when we exercise a program called Dogs Playing for Life. But we
Okay.
have other yards that have lean-tos in them to shield from the cold or the heat or the rain. So they all get lots of exercise every day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. While I've been doing these interviews and speaking to different people, scheduling the interviews, one of the things that I've really heard a lot is they get 20 to 15 minutes a day out of their crate or their run. Very little human interaction unless somebody's coming to their actual run, where they're either so excited they're jumping up and down, where the person's like, wait, this dog's a little bit wild, or they're there and they look sad. So you actually have the opportunity where potential adoptee families can come see them actually playing in their natural environment.
Absolutely. So our policy is to rescue from high kill shelters, which there's two of them in Bakersfield, which is kind of a sister city. It's only about 50 miles away. But we
Okay.
we try to help them out as much as we can. We bring them to the rescue ranch. If they're not spay or neutered, we take care of that.
Okay.
Occasionally, we will rescue a dog on the euthanasia list that has some medical problems. We had a medical grant that took care of like a couple of high priced surgeries. But
Sure.
they come to the ranch, and all the dogs do when they come, no pressure on them, but they're decompressing while they're there. They're rehabilitating with our rescue ranch advocates. We like to
Okay.
call them that because they advocate for every single dog that they take care of. They're
Sure.
also responsible for helping us adopt them as well.
Okay. So then thinking and hearing you, if I hear you correct, they have the ability to, like we had just talked about, be out there playing. And you
Yes.
also shared a little bit about the rehabilitation program and more. Tell me about what special, specific programs you guys have there to really make the dogs more adoptable and increase the retention rate for the forever home.
Well, so one really important program we brought another nonprofit in called Dogs Playing for Life.
Okay.
And they are a group that travel around the nation. The cool thing is they are nonprofit, but they come into different areas of the United States and they show rescue staff and also those in shelters how to arrange play groups that are safe, productive, and very enriching for the dogs and the employees as well. So that is a huge program. One thing that we're really excited about, though, is that we do have a resident um, veterinarian that we contract with. She's not there 24/7, but she comes once a week. She
Sure.
checks out all the new dogs that we intake from the shelters and also, takes a look at the other dogs that might be having a problem. So having that veterinary care on a once a week basis has really benefited the rescue because it's a lot less money having her come there than having an employee have to go to a veterinary clinic with the dog.
Especially dog by dog.
Yes. I mean, during COVID and everything, it was a real challenge because all of our employees had to wait out in the car. But
Okay.
even so, had we continued that method of treatment with our dogs, we're still, giving up an employee that really
Right.
needs to be at the ranch to sit there with the dog until the vet can bring him back to the back office.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. I was speaking with somebody yesterday from Cobb County Animal Services, and they have a lot of great programs as well. So it's always fantastic when I'm able to speak with somebody that is doing more in regards to the rehab program, so that way the adoptability is higher, like we talked about the retention rate at the forever home. So share with me a couple of the most challenging stories that you've dealt with, because I think it's really, really important for the people that are on the fence, whether to foster, not foster, adopt, not adopt, because they don't realize that in most situations, yours is a little bit different. The dogs might be in their run or crate for all day except for 15, 20 minutes. So if you could talk about a couple of the stories, the toughest ones, and also how long per day do they get to go play in the amount of acreage you have?
Well, given a really nice day, they can be out almost the whole day.
That's fantastic.
And we have a rotating crew of rescue ranch advocates that actually walk them. And while they're walking them, they're going through steps for good canine good citizenship exercises. So that's really, really great. Now it's curious because we've had some high winds in Tehachapi, and the wind really seems to make the dogs nutty.
Yeah.
So we have to be very cautious if they're out playing that we're not having multiple dogs in one yard when it's really, really windy because they agitate one another because they're already agitated because of the wind. Now,
They
the
get very
wind
nervous.
or snow or rain would be a reason why we bring them in to their indoor kennels, but mainly they're really lucky that they have the outdoors.
Sure.
Um, as far as a couple of challenging dogs, I think the one that has one of the most compelling stories is a dog when I was the former executive director there, um, by the name of Courage. And he was a dog that was located in Ohio, where they have a high degree of dog fighting. And we were contacted by them because he had no tongue. And they knew that in our care had been a dog by the name of Hooch, who also had no tongue, that our founder's father basically adopted. He lived with him. But he came to us, he was emaciated, he was just bit all over. You could just tell by his little face that he'd been in fights. Um, and Zach went back and picked him up and drove him out to California. And the poor dog had tons of medical issues. We had to do a lot of sub-Q IVs on him. Um, we had to have certain people feeding him. He didn't like everybody at first. And it was a challenge for us to get used to how to feed him more successfully so that he
Sure.
actually swallowed the food rather than it being all over the place.
Okay.
Well, long story short, he became one of the most kindest, sweetest dogs on the ranch.
Love it.
and we never thought he would be adopted. But
Okay.
his demeanor changed so much, especially after he had been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay.
And after he was treated for that, he became a whole different dog. And a happy dog, healthy dog. He gained 30 pounds,
Oh, wow.
but he was still at our rescue ranch for something like 1,000 days or a little over 1,000 days, maybe 1,100 days. He was fostered by a family and it was successful. And then a lady stepped up to adopt him.
All right.
So
And how
every
is that?
dog has their possibility, no matter what the challenge. I will say that Marley's does not accept behavioral dogs per se.
Okay.
We assess them really well when we're at the shelter. But if they're a behavioral issue, they become a liability at the ranch as well.
Okay. And can you go a little bit deeper into when you say behavioral, what things you actually look for?
Biting,
Other dogs, people, both?
both. Not getting along with dogs, not getting along with humans. Not all dogs get along with cats, and we try to cat test them if we can before adopting into a home with a cat.
Okay.
But mainly the way they act around humans.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, because that's so vital because especially in your model as I'm listening to you, if they're out there on the ranch, possibly all day playing, which is so much, so there's so much beneficial uh reinforcement for them doing that versus being in the run. If they're out there and they're aggressive and biting other dogs or biting people, that changes the whole entire situation.
Right. And this is why I really feel for the people that run the shelters, the municipal and the county shelters. They only have so much space.
Right.
But there are dogs that just don't do well in kennels because of the barking.
Yeah.
They might have been a really demure dog before they were taken into this shelter and just become crazy because of all the noise and the lack of human contact.
Right.
So that's why we try to have as much human contact at the ranch with our dogs as we possibly can.
That makes sense. How do they react, even if they're, I would imagine they'd be in the runs during this, but with bad storms and stuff like that. And the reason I ask is that's something that I've heard on the interviews that is challenging. And I know that my own little girl, Angel Soleil, as soon as there's a little bit of thunder, she's hiding under her bed or hiding behind the couch, something like that. She normally actually, before I actually hear the rain or anything, she knows it's coming. I don't know. But how do you handle that?
We have an enrichment coordinator that actually arranges toys for the dogs when they have to be in their own kennels indoors. So Kongs are a great idea.
Okay.
We don't use like blankets very much because some of them tear them up, and
Okay.
that's just a helpful hint for you when you pursue is that dogs, if they're left with a blanket overnight, if they're chewers and they start to eat the blanket, they can end up with a bowel obstruction.
Because it all
So
gets
that's
stuck.
something to really be aware of. So
Okay.
we try to give those, treats that expend some of the energy in their jaw, in their whole physical being. You might put peanut butter in there or
Yeah.
whatever, but Kongs are really a successful enrichment tool.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fantastic. And what you're saying makes perfect sense. The Kongs are a long-term playing because the peanut butter,
Yes,
like you're saying, is all the way in there and they're trying to get it and get it and get it. That could really take their attention for a long time to play with
yes,
that versus
yes.
eating a whole blanket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any other really challenging stories that you have seen or dealt with or anything in that nature?
Well, we have another dog at the ranch by the name of Najee, and I'm going to be doing a little 30-second feature on him
Oh, wow.
for a year-end promotion for Marley's. Najee was there before I got there. I came to Marley's in 2019, and I fell in love with him on the Marley's Mutts Facebook page. And he was a dog that was brought to the ranch by Zach through Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was paralyzed, the back hind legs. And he still is at the ranch. He's been fostered here and there, but he's got such a sweet nature to him and such a spirit of resilience that I want to see him adopted. I
Sure.
wouldn't be able to bring him up where I am because of the terrain that we're on,
Right.
but he is just without a doubt one of my favorites of all time there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And when you do that video, I would love it if you share it with me so I can put it on all of our social platforms as well to
I
share
sure
the
will.
message.
Thank you.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now let's flip it a little bit to the good stories. So tell me a couple of success stories that maybe they got there and I don't know if you didn't have hope is the right word, but there was more obstacles to overcome than the average
I
pup
definitely
over.
have a great story for you.
Go for it.
So, Great Pyrenees are fairly common to see them as strays in our area in
Okay.
Tehachapi. Because if they're not busy guarding a ranch with animals, they leave. And there's nothing that the ranchers can do about it. So we also had a little pit bull that was just crazy as far as she was going crazy in the shelter. But when she came to us, we thought she will never be adopted. She
Okay.
cried a lot, no matter how much time she spent with humans. She ran up and down the fence line quite a bit. And somehow we got these two dogs together. And he was a roamer and didn't seem interested too much in anybody, but she was the crazy one. And they became best friends. So the obstacle we had when dogs bond like that, we don't necessarily say they're a bonded pair because that's makes it a little bit harder to adopt.
Yeah, that
But they
makes
were
sense.
a bonded pair. We did promote that they were very good for one another, and it could not be a great success story of adoption unless they were paired. And we
Okay.
did find someone that adopted them both,
Wow.
and they're doing both magnificently.
So share a little bit now that they're home, in their forever home, how often you get updates, how does that work? And I know every dog is a little bit different, but in this specific situation, because it's such fantastic, the ability to have them both adopted together.
Well, we do get updates. Some of the ranch advocates get personal updates, but Marley's Mutts actually established a Facebook page called Marley's Mutts Alumni.
Oh,
And
wow.
anybody that adopts a dog or fosters a dog actually from Marley's Mutts that wants to post on that page, they can. So
Okay.
we really get more updates than a lot of other rescues might, only because it's so easy for our adopters to go onto Facebook and just post a photo and a few lines.
That makes perfect sense. I think that's a fantastic idea.
We love it.
Yeah. Because I think that in your role and your teammates' roles, seeing the positive, seeing that change, seeing that home, maybe they're now snuggling with their new owners or parents, really refuels you when you have the
Yes,
challenging situations that come up.
it does. It really helps the morale of the entire staff, but most importantly, of the rescue ranch advocates that are the ones feeding them, picking up their poo every day, giving them the meds that they need, walking them, enriching them. When they go on that page and they see one of the dogs that they had responsibility for living their best life, it really, really helps our staff.
That's amazing. I love that. I've not heard that yet at all. So that's something that I think is absolutely fantastic. And
Yeah,
really, like you're saying, if you can see the change over and over and over again, that refuel must be amazing. Let me ask you, when you have one of the challenging situations like you shared with me before, and maybe a dog is there, or there's a challenging situation where it doesn't end well, how do you the next morning wake up and really refire yourself to go because there's so many more dogs there still need your love and care?
you just said it. there's so many dogs that need the love and care. And my being working away from the ranch right now, I miss that because I could go out of my office prior and
Right.
just make friends with dogs, but I'm not able to be in a position to do that. But all the staff is involved in the dogs, down to the executive director, Dr. Melissa Brunson, where she is really hands on with the dogs. The whole staff is, though.
Okay.
Every staff member has interaction with dogs.
Can you go a little bit deeper and really explain that interaction so that way, my goal is twofold. One, we've spoken about the model that I'm working on, but I also want other shelters, rescues that hear and see this interview to have a maybe like a little bit of plan. So if you can go in deeper on what those specifics are, it could help a lot of people.
Well, first and foremost, the executive director has to have a handle on each of the dogs that's there and
Right.
have some type of interaction. Whether it be outside helping walk them, just talking to them, reading to them, or whatever.
Right.
It's really important that the executive director knows what dogs are being adopted. But every single staff member, even in the admin office, I haven't found anybody yet that does not want to get to know the dogs. So
Right.
that's really important. It's important to have that investment and that knowledge in what a dog is like, because it just seems to help the overall picture of the mission. So it's real important for every single one of them. And also, it's a good idea to involve your board of directors at
Okay.
meetings at your rescue, where they get a tour of your rescue as well as interact with some of the dogs as well.
Gotcha. How many people are on the board?
6.
Six. Okay. And is there a specific number with a nonprofit that it has to be, or it can be a little bit more, a little bit less? Do you know that how that works?
Um, I can't really speak to that for sure.
Okay.
You'd have to look that up on the IRS site.
Okay.
Typically, you like to have more than 6, but if not, 6 is a good number. The thing that you have to have is a chairman or president, a co-chair would be nice, a secretary, and a treasurer.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Got it. What would you say is the most proud, the thing that has really made you the most proud of all your years there at Marley's Mutts that's happened?
Well, just the satisfaction of being able to offer second chances to dogs. But also, one of the things that attracted me to Marley's Mutts was the fact that not only are they a dog rescue, the slogan is rescued dogs rescuing people. So in Marley's Mutts, we have 3 programs now where we have rescue dogs helping the community. So we have our Miracle Mutts program where they're not all Marley's Mutts rescued, but quite a few of the dogs are rescues,
Sure.
but go through special training for animal assisted therapy. So we serve the community at no cost. We go into schools, we go into 911 dispatch centers. We help neglected and abused children. We're affiliated with the hospital. We have that program. Our next program is a brand new program starting in January called Troops and Tails. And that is for veterans, animal assisted therapy with animals and also therapy with a licensed mental health professional.
Okay.
And then our third program is Positive Change, and that is where we actually use our rescue dogs as we're going to use with the veterans. But we use the rescue dogs, go into California state prisons, and administer a rehabilitation program where we pair dogs with those incarcerated for that mutual rehabilitation. So not only do the incarcerated have an opportunity to bond with the dog, some of them have not seen a dog for 20 years, but
Sure.
also we prepare them for workforce and reentry.
That's fantastic. I've never even thought about that as an option. And, when you really think about it, an incarcerated person is sort of in a run, a human run, and has limited communication except for who's near them. I would imagine that that program, when they see the dogs, they probably just light up.
There is a total change in those incarcerated people's demeanor. Now, we haven't served any women in the California system. We've just served the men. We've served one facility in federal at Victorville for women. But I have to say that many of these incarcerated are there for life. And
Right.
because of their outstanding behaviors, have actually gotten out of prison. They go in further to be a dog care professional or a trainer, a professional trainer.
Wow. Yeah, so that really is different than the regular model where the incarcerated person might do their GED, they might do some college, things of that nature, which is wonderful, but it's not very tangible. However, seeing a dog, being able to pet a dog, and really, feel that love, which they may not be getting, is tangible.
It is. And the thing of it is, in the prisons, there's much division as far as ethnicity. What we
Right.
require during the positive change program is that men of all ethnicities live together in one pod. So they have to get along. It can't
Okay.
be gang, it can't be this, it can't be the politics of the gang uh, mental image. It's got to be they all get along.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But I love that program. I love these interviews because it's teaching me so much, and it's also showing me so many different programs that are available that you can make a huge difference.
Sure.
So even if you have a dog there that might be there a year or 2 years, even though that you're wanting them to find their forever home and it's taking a little bit longer, maybe some of these dogs are part of those programs where they're able to still feel and give that love in the meantime.
Right. And the really cool thing about social media, we're going to talk about social media marketing for a minute.
Sure.
We have about 762,000 followers on Facebook. In all, with Instagram and Facebook, it's over 1 million. But it's so important that these dogs are marketed properly, that they really have visibility. Because if Hooch, for instance, who didn't have a tongue, didn't have visibility, the rescue and shelter in Ohio never would have known that we've taken care of tongueless dogs before.
Sure.
So I would say to any rescue that the social media aspect of your marketing plan is really, really important.
Yeah. And the question on that was that due to a human that the tongue was not there on the pup anymore?
Probably so. We don't know if the tongue was bitten out or if it was actually amputated.
Gotcha. Yeah. I got chills right now, just thinking about that.
Just to
Wow.
see the dog without the tongue, with the smile on their face, trying to eat it first when they're not used to it is really heart wrenching. But once they start to recover and they discover there is a way to eat without choking and throwing it all around the room, it's really satisfying to see that.
Yeah, I would imagine that's amazing. Without a doubt. What other types of situations, like you were saying, the dog that didn't have the tongue, that are very, I guess, different than the normal dog that comes? Any other types of situations that are anomalies?
Well, those that have injuries, and most of the injuries we've been able to help. However, it's the dogs with cancer that are really tough.
Yeah.
We've taken in a few dogs that are like hospice dogs.
Okay.
And just like if they were in a family, it's very, very hard to know if your dog has a life threatening disease or a terminal illness when they need to go over the rainbow.
Yeah.
And that's what's heart wrenching for us and our staff is to make those decisions so that the dog doesn't suffer.
Right.
But some of those dogs really are inspiring because One thing, dogs don't do anything to really get sympathy. If they're limping because of a reason. If they're lethargic for a reason.
Sure.
So you know that with their courage and all these dogs that we've seen that we've taken care of with life-threatening disease or injuries or illnesses, they're all so stoic and courageous. And humans can learn a lot from that.
Wow. And when you see that transition, and we talked about this a little bit before, but I just think it's so important in the dogs you were just referring to. When you see that transition to when they get there to maybe a week, 2, 3 weeks, and I guess every dog's a little bit different. Like, how does that energize the whole entire staff when you see that?
You mean to make the decision to send
No,
them to
no,
the
no.
rainbow or
No, 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 no. When they come in, the positive that they find before they have to go.
oh,
Yeah,
well, it does an amazing amount of confidence building with the staff. If the staff has what we call compassion fatigue, they don't usually dwell on that while they're taking care of a hospice dog.
sure.
Old dogs are the same, senior dogs are the same. We've taken in quite a few senior dogs who look like they don't have much longer. And the cool thing that really energizes our staff is when they see those dogs go to loving homes and they last 3 or 4 more years.
Wow.
So what
Yeah.
our staff tries to do is take the good out of every situation and let them build that as a human being.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. Totally love it. Switching gears a little bit, if I understand correctly, you also work with the grant writing. Is that correct?
Yes, when I retired from Marley's, it was kind of with the idea that I'd still come on board semi-retired working remote as a grant writer. So when I was executive director and we had a fairly small admin staff, I really didn't have a lot of opportunity to write grants.
Right.
So now what I do with the 5 hours I work on a daily basis is search for grants, all kinds of grants, health and human services grants, animal welfare grants, you name it, I'm looking for it.
Gotcha. And let me ask you, and I know it always is fluid, but how many grants do you have to go after that you actually get? And what goes into actually the application? Because what I've seen so far, based on the grant applications that I've looked at, they're pretty thorough and very extensive. It's not a matter of filling out just a couple of things. It's a big process.
It is a big process. First, the really important thing is a narrative on that particular grant that you're writing for.
Okay.
So we write grants for all of our programs that we just talked about, but we also write grants for general operations because a
Okay.
lot of people don't understand with all these programs we have, we still have to buy food. We
Yeah.
still have like $30,000 in utilities every year.
Yeah.
We still have ranch upkeep. It's just never ending the amount that goes into taking these dogs from the shelter and bringing them to the ranch. So the
Right.
narrative regarding your program is really important to perfect that.
Gotcha. So if you have more specific dynamic programs like you shared with us today, your opportunity to be able to be the person who, or the company or organization, let me say it differently, to receive that grant increases.
Yes, definitely. And you asked a question earlier about grant writing and how much you can expect. So studies have been done, and they say that with nonprofit grant writing, you can expect maybe a 13%, only a 13% return in what you're writing. Well, we're at about 16% now, but it's
60?
just because I'm working on it almost full time and I have a volunteer that's helping me do grant search as well.
What percentage did you say? Did you say 60?
We're at no 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make
yeah.
sure I understood correct. So that's definitely above the average, which is
We're
fantastic.
above the average, but we'd like to be 25%.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And how long does it take? And I know every grant's different, but just in general, how long does it take to actually do the whole grant application to prepare before you even submit it?
Well, so almost everything is online now. And
Okay.
what I appreciate about a lot of grantors is that they put the questions in a PDF form so that you can anticipate what you're going to fill out online.
Okay.
So I like that to be prepared, and that's when I can go over my narrative and make changes. A lot of the time they have word or character limits, so
Okay.
it takes some time to do that. But on a relatively simple grant, it's about a day and a half. On a state or federal grant, it could take up to a week.
And that's one person and a volunteer specifically just focused on that.
Yes.
So if you're talking about your normal shelter or rescue or things of that nature, where there's someone who's maybe helping, that could take a lot longer to be able to get an application complete.
Right. Well, I do the applications, so I don't have assistance with that, except
Okay.
with the budgets. I always want to go through the budgets with the executive director, Melissa, Dr. Brunson, and also our operations director, Connor Long, because
Okay.
we want to make sure that we've covered every single expense related to that program or general and administrative that we have.
Okay. And you were sharing before with about the veteran program. Has that started or it's something that's in the lifting process?
We have two grants that are going to help kick that off in January. We're probably going to be ready to start it in February.
Okay.
We're doing a lot of talking with other veterans organizations right now and mental health professionals. And also we're having a yard built specifically for that reason, because what we want to do with the veterans is give them a degree of security and confidentiality, because
Sure.
this can be related back to HIPAA regulations if
Gotcha.
mental health professionals are involved as well. So we're doing a yard away from the other yards so that they can feel confident that it's private.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there's so many different programs, there's so many different needs. You'll see the videos sometimes with the dogs, like you said, visiting the hospitals and, the children or even adults that are in a tough situation. It just lifts that spirit. Even if it's for 20 minutes, it gives them that ability to decompress, smile, feel love, give love, and is such an important piece for the overall mission.
It really is to see how an adult or a child interacts with a dog. We do a Barks and Books program for
Okay.
children's literacy with the Kern County Library System, and it really boosts their confidence to read aloud. It helps people in 911 centers lower the stress level. Of course,
I would
like I
imagine.
said, we visit hospital patients, but also we recently did it. It's called stress relief at one of the colleges in Bakersfield during
Okay.
finals, and
Oh,
that helps
wow.
a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, whenever I see a dog, no matter what situation, where I'm at or anything, my whole thing is first thing, is he friendly? Is she friendly? Can I pet? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times people don't ask that question, just go. And then if the dog is sensitive or nervous, it could be a negative situation. You just need to ask first. But
That's one of the beautiful things about the Miracle Mutts program, because they have to pass testing in order to certify to be a therapy dog. So they
okay.
can't be squeamish, they can't be nervous. It takes a really calm, collected, kind dog to become a Miracle Mutt. And we're so proud of those guys.
That's fantastic. And could you talk a little bit about maybe the training that goes into the Miracle Mud? To obviously, there's the part where you recognize whether or not they're a candidate to do it. And then is there a specific training program they go through?
Yes, so it's Canine Good Citizen first.
Okay.
And then after they pass that, they pass it with their owners. That's how they get certified Canine Good Citizen. And I'd like to say that our handlers of these dogs are 100% volunteer. So
Wow.
they do all this running around Kern County at no cost, just for the cause. And then afterwards, they go through a system of visits. They start out as a novice or in training, and then they graduate to a full-blown therapy dog.
Okay. That's it. You're blowing me away today with all of this, Sharon.
A
I
lot of
know we've spoken
information.
before, and we see, we chatted a little bit about different things, but with the programs you have, it's wonderful because here's a situation where there's dogs that can come from a negative, you said high kill shelter potentially, or different situations, and now they're enriching other humans' lives, but also that enriches their life as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You had talked a little bit about when it's raining or things of that nature, things are a little different. They obviously can't be out.
Right.
Now, we talked about the model that I'm looking to try to implement,
Hmm.
where it would be the indoor dog park, where we'd have part of it with customers for the indoor dog park, the grooming, the boarding, the training, and then all of the profits from that would go strictly 100% to the dog rescue piece.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think is so important is training. Like you said, how do we make the dogs more adoptable?
Right.
I think also one of the other things that we want to look at doing is grooming to make them feel, really just when you get out of the shower and you get dressed, you feel fresh. It's
Right.
just different. And also, like you guys do, my goal too is to have them out in the dog rescue area playing for 3 to 4 hours a day. How do you
Yes.
feel that type of model would help with for specifically to decrease the numbers of day to adoption and increase the retention rate of the forever home?
I think it makes a huge difference. I mean, the grooming is a really great component because you want to make sure that when you're doing adoption photography or you're doing meet and greets in person, that the dog is presentable. I
Sure.
mean, don't get me wrong. Being on a ranch, our dogs get muddy and this and that, and we take care of that. But just to make them presentable, having a groomer would be fantastic with rescue dogs. But it's the human interaction while they're in rescue that makes all the difference in the world on how they act during a meet and greet, how they are perceived. We still have dogs that are excitable and what have you,
Sure.
but some people like that. Another really important component to adoption is having a staff that interviews the candidate, a possible candidate for adoption, to know, is this dog, high energy dog, great for these 70-year-olds? Most of the time, probably no. But it's
Sure.
getting to know the dog's personality and getting to know the personalities and just how they have a livelihood at home with your candidates.
Yep. And I would imagine that betting system increases your retention rate of adoption significantly.
We rarely have a dog that has problems going to a new home.
That's unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I don't know what the national average is off the top of my head. I've done some different research in different areas. Um, However, when I was on one of the other interviews, the individual I was interviewing was sharing that during the Christmas holidays and, Thanksgiving, Christmas, they get a lot of dogs back because do I keep the dog or do I buy presents for the family? Um, what are your thoughts on that? That could maybe be done to lower that number.
Well, when you decide to rescue a dog, it should never be, and if you have children especially, it should never just be the parent choosing a dog and bringing it home. Surprise, Merry Christmas.
Right.
Because it's just not fair to the dog. And it's not fair to the child. It's a meet and greet in person is essential.
Right.
Now, we will adopt dogs out of state, but I would say all those people from out of state that adopt a dog at Marley's Mutts come into Marley's Mutts Rescue Ranch and spend time with that dog. And they bring family with them if they have family. So I think it's fine to have a dog during the holidays, but you have to understand that if it's been at the rescue ranch, or even if you're adopting from a shelter, that you have to protect that dog.
Yeah.
There's a law of averages, 3 3 and 3 3 weeks to compress, 3 weeks or 3 months to get used to your home. Well, a dog can't do that if there's a lot of hustle and bustle in the home. So the
Right.
best thing, if you have a dog prior to the holidays, is to make sure that you have a safe room with a crate. We do believe in crating.
Okay.
Uh, and the crate to our dogs at the ranch is their safe haven. So if
Okay.
you undertake that in your own home, and your dog knows that's a safe place, and maybe it's a dark room, maybe it's just a room that's really quiet. But
Sure.
one of the things we don't ever recommend is that if you're having a ton of company over and this is a newly adopted dog, to have this dog interact with everybody. It's just not a win-win situation most of the time.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It raises the opportunity for the dog being so uncomfortable because they're putting in the setting for something potentially negative to happen
Yes.
because the dog is not being prepared and put in the right situation to be successful.
Well, and not every human has great dog etiquette.
Yeah.
You see that when you're watching TikTok or Facebook or whatever, where you see dogs on a leash, and then they let the dog off the leash to invade the space of a dog on the leash, or they have them on the leash, but they, instead of introducing them slowly, they just let their dog bombard the other dog. That's not good pet ownership, and it certainly
Sure.
isn't fair to the dog and other pet owners.
Right. And I would imagine that realistically, when you really take a step back and look at it from a 50,000 foot view, the dogs are going to be as successful as the adopters set them up to be.
Exactly. And you have to be willing to put that time into a dog. Although our dogs are used to walking on leash and what have you, it
Right.
really takes training, and it has to be consistent.
Yeah. One of the additional features that we want to do at Pause Save and Pause is the training, obviously beforehand, but also when a person adopts a dog, 6 week hour, one day a week, an hour for 6 weeks, training with the adopter and the adopted dog. So that way they can actually work together and train because normally that can be anywhere from 50 to 100, $150 per session. And someone that just went and adopted a dog, they might not have the ability to do that. But how
Right.
much impact do you think it'll have for them to have that free training program with official trainers?
I think it would be huge. We don't do it, we don't have the funding for it, but I
Sure.
think that also furthers retention.
Yep. Yeah. And like we said before, the number one goal is days to adoption and retention rate.
Yes,
Because if you can bring your days to adoption from 29 days down to 14, think about how many dogs that you can additionally help in the exact same space. Whereas before, if they
right.
were there longer, and also and you guys are a little bit different because you don't really get many returns. However, a lot of places do. So if you can lower that number on returns and increase the retention rate, again, with the same space, you can help more dogs.
Exactly. So one thing that we do that we're really proud of, and I forgot to mention it earlier, it's not so much community based, but we have a program called Marley's Mutt Movers,
Okay.
and we transport dogs from the shelters, up to 500 a year. We transport them from the local shelters up to areas of the Pacific Northwest, and also near Canada, where they
Okay.
have adoption waiting lists.
Oh,
So to
wow.
be able to help the shelters out like that, and help these areas of the country in Canada that just don't have enough dogs to adopt, it helps our community totally, but it also helps fulfill a need elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. One of my interviews with Stephanie Passmore, she's in Baton Rouge, and
Yes,
their crisis there is very overwhelming because the amount of dogs that's good going. And they do a lot of adoptions out of state. They have volunteers who do the travel,
yes.
uh, things of that nature. When will it just be like the social media outreach, or what other avenues do you really follow or try to find out of state rescues? Is it like a personal relationship with different places in different states, or how does that work?
It starts with knowing a couple of rescues out of the state. So we know people in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. There's people in Idaho and then people in Montana. So actually, word kind of spreads. We have a grant that allows us to transport these dogs. It's a $50,000 grant.
Wow,
And to, we try to do a transport every month of 35 to 40 dogs. It just depends. It
amazing.
depends upon the size of the dogs. But once word of mouth goes around that, hey, Marley's is able to transport and they're able to transport this many, then there are some rescues that want to adopt that just don't have the population or the census say, oh, okay, we'll take some of those dogs.
Sure.
So it's basically word of mouth. We do some work marketing on social media, but I think it's mainly been word of mouth among other rescues.
Yeah. And the more that you are able to place in different states, the word of mouth goes more and more, which then leads to more adoptions in different places.
It does. Now, the only problem with upcoming months is the weather.
Right.
It can be a real challenge for us to get around in the snow with this bus that we have. But we go gangbusters mostly every every month in the spring and the fall and the
Okay.
summer.
Perfect. How many adoptions do you guys have per year on average there over at Marley's?
There's probably around 400. And then if you're looking at what we're transporting, we're saving, you know, 900 to 1,000 dogs a year.
That's amazing.
It is.
Like truly, truly amazing. My goal for the pause is to be 400 plus per year.
That would
And
be fantastic.
yeah, I appreciate that. And like we talked about, I've shared a lot with you before the interview about, my goals, what I'm looking to achieve and things of that nature. If there's someone like myself who's wanting to make a difference and really save more lives, what would you tell them to want to help? Like you've helped me tremendously. There's things that I didn't think about that you made sure I knew, which is so helpful and appreciated. What would you say to that person that's on the fence to either foster, adopt, or whatever it might be, to get them to understand that it is the best case scenario?
Well, fostering is wonderful. I mean, we have so many great fosters for Marley's Mutts. Some of them turn out to be foster fails and they adopt their own foster dog, which
Right.
is fine. But building a team of foster people is really essential because when they are able to take a dog into their home and make the best life while the dog is still on the adoption list, those are really passionate, loving people that really believe in the foster cause. So
Sure.
fostering is so important, especially if we do have a medical dog and our medical census is at capacity. Having a foster that has some medical knowledge is really vital. But also, the way you interact with your adoption people
Right.
that are adoption candidates, um, making sure that your fees aren't too high, making sure that you're fairly liberal with accepting where they live. They don't always have to have a fenced yard.
Right.
Just going by some of that protocol that you can even look up on the internet about what different rescues are doing to promote adoptions and retention. There's a lot of programs out there called Return to Owner, where rescue facilities are looking for grants for that to do everything they can to get a dog into the hands of the owner.
Okay.
But I think I lost my train of thought.
Oh, no problem at all. I do that often. I turned 50 recently, and that's I think one of the things that my 50th birthday has brought.
The one thing I will say is that I would not recommend people go to Craigslist because you're liable to find backyard breeders who don't
Sure.
spay and neuter, don't vaccinate properly. And one of the biggest challenges that we had was a litter that was, it was a pit bull bred with a Chihuahua.
Oh,
And the
wow.
dogs, most of the puppies came into this world without limbs, either hind
Without,
legs or front legs.
wait,
Our
without
Miracle
limbs? What
Mutts coordinator actually adopted one of those
did you
dogs,
say
and she's
without
a Miracle
limbs?
Mutt. Huh?
Sharon, did you say without limbs?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So when you have backyard breeders, they know nothing about genetics. They just want to breed to see if they can just breed
And
and
make
make a
money.
few bucks.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And all the dogs from that litter you said, even though they had the issues with the limbs, were able to get adopted?
I'm not sure about the entire litter. I don't know that the entire litter lived, but I know that some of the more critical ones were adopted.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've heard just unbelievable stories that are positive, unbelievable stories that are negative. And I'm just choked up for a second. Sorry.
That's okay.
When I look at everything and see some of the things, the emotional overtake your emotional state, and to hold back tears that somebody could actually do this to a dog that has nothing but unconditional love.
I know.
And sorry, but there's tons of positive outcomes too, and I have to always focus on that as well. What would you suggest for someone like myself to make sure that I'm able to every morning wake up and go, regardless of all the challenges, the horrible things that I see every day, on top of the positive things? But when you have maybe a week of the negative stories and things that are tear jerkers and challenging that you wish you could do more about, but there just was no possibility. Like when you wake up that next morning, what would you say to somebody to make them really, I don't know the right word, but to
I think
continue
I
on the
can help
mission?
you out there
Thank you.
because so there are quite a few instances where a whole entire organization can be brought to tears. Abuse cases, illness cases, and it's hard to keep morale up.
Sure.
Um, you can have entire litters that have parvo or distemper, and it's just such a challenging medical issue to deal with. But one thing I would suggest to anybody that is has a leadership role in rescue is take some classes on compassion fatigue. But
Okay.
along with that, take some classes on how to build up your staff, how to recognize when your staff is at a point where they're at a point of tearing up or tears. You've got to be able to support that.
Okay.
And one thing that we all try to do is there are some really heinous things that are happening regarding dog abuse,
Yeah.
neglect. Um, it's just beyond the imagination of the normal human being that any other human being could treat a living soul this way. But
Right.
what I always try to instill in the employees, and I know that Dr. Brunson does the same, is that feel sorry for a few minutes, but now uplift yourself, because the more you uplift yourself, the more you can uplift that dog.
Right.
The
And
more
there's a lot of
energy you
dogs.
can put into spending with that dog rather than the energy of the toxicity of thinking about the horrible things that happened to the dog. What
Right.
happened is in the past. All you
Sure.
can do is love that dog for all they're worth and make them the best they can be.
Gotcha. One sec. My little angel Soleil is barking at the door. I'm going to let her in real quick. Give me one quick sec.
Sure.
Come on, baby girl.
I
Here, come here. Come here, love. Oh. Oops, sorry, baby doll. So this is Soleil.
Hi, Soleil.
Here, look at the screen, baby girl.
Hi, Poo
Um, me personally, this road, I was a campus college president and I've been in higher education for over 20 years. Then I got a disability that made it where I couldn't work anymore. And it, it led to a very big depression and challenge. I had to put down my English bulldog because, like you were talking about, his legs went in the back. And I called my mom one day and I said, um, I don't know if I should put Blue down or not because he was in a spot when he was going to the bathroom, he would fall into it and sometimes get the poop on him. And then when I would try to clean him, he was in so much pain he would attack.
Yeah.
And my mom said when I called her, I think you should have done it a year ago. And you just never know when that's the case. But this little angel brought me out of the darkness and is my heart. And
Yes.
that's really what this is all about is one, she picked me. I know people say that they pick them, but I think the dogs pick us.
Yeah. Oh, I do
Um,
too.
yeah. And it was, and I'm not trying to go that far into my, personal, but it was such a challenging time in life. And when we went and got Soleil as a puppy from the Animal Defense League, which is a great place down here in San Antonio, slowly but surely, she got me out of all of it and back into being able to love, to feel, to accept love, things of that nature. And I think that's what's so important is people need to understand is no matter what your situation is, a dog, rescue dog can really help you tremendously.
So many medical benefits to the feeling you get when you're holding your dog, like you say, or petting the dog, or just knowing they're in the other room.
Yeah. Yeah. It means the world to me. And you've given me a lot of time so far, so I appreciate that, Sharon. When we wrap up, can you tell me maybe one or two things that you think need to be known that are really, really important on top of what we shared today to go ahead and really help with the rescue efforts, help with the adoptions, and help with really any other piece that maybe I'm not thinking of that you might know?
So, if there's anybody out there that's considering going into rescue, it's really important that you volunteer there first. You
Okay.
want to make sure that it's a good fit, whether you're in the shelter or whether you're at a rescue. Um, Also, if anybody's thinking of nonprofit type rescue, it's important that you look at the IRS website on starting a nonprofit. I've
Okay.
never been involved in a startup, but I've got 20 years experience in nonprofit guidelines knowledge, so it does help me there.
Sure.
But you just have to be overall an empathetic person. You have to have empathy with the dogs. You have to have empathy with your employees, and you have to have empathy with your when you're talking to yourself and
Sure.
trying to get over a challenge that you feel that you failed at. You've got to give yourself a break.
Gotcha. And that all makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to first thank you so much for before this interview, all of the I don't even want to use tips, but uh knowledge that you've shared with me.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
yeah, and I'm gonna definitely ask you more questions in the future. That's
Sure.
good. But I just really, really appreciate you, and you taught me so much so far. And what you guys are doing over at Marley's Mutts is absolutely amazing. The
Thank
programs
you.
that you have sound fantastic. And I'm so excited to hear more about the veterans program. When you said about February-ish, it would be able to launch.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Sharon, thank you so much for coming on to our series today and sharing some more about Marley's Mutts. And is there anything else that you would like to say in closing?
I thank you for this opportunity. It's been great being able to give you some of my knowledge, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. I might need a grant writer help too someday.
Okay.
All right. Well, you have a fantastic day, Sharon, and
Thank you.
Thank you again so much for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, have a great day.
You too. Bye.